Welcome back. This is News Extra. Now tonight we are marking the end of an era for newspapers here in Norfolk and in North Suffolk as well. Nigel Pickover, the editor of the Eastern Daily Press, is retiring after 44 years within the industry. So what's changed in that time? What's his thoughts on the current state of the industry and, well, what's next for him as well? So my guest tonight is Nigel Pickover. Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening, Neil.
44 years in the industry. Yeah. How are you feeling coming into your last few days?
Well, interestingly, when I started off all those years ago, I had a sparkle in my eye about what was going to happen, the future, and a notebook in my hand, a pen, and I'm still as excited about the future of journalism all these years on. New eras are dawning, but it's still a fabulous profession, and we've got great stories yet to tell.
Well, let's skip back 44 years. What was the drive for you? Why did you first want to get into the industry?
Well, the interesting point there was I was in Derbyshire, and my school had a careers convention, and the careers convention had various booths, and I walked along the booths, and there was one that had an aura about it. I later found out that was the smell of alcohol and cigarettes from the assistant editor who was in there trying to encourage people to become journalists.
From which paper was that?
So it was the Sheffield Star. So I went back home, I applied to the Sheffield Star, and I got an interview. And when I walked in, the look started, because the man who came down the stairs was the man who'd been in the booth, smelling of alcohol and cigarettes and an aura about him. So I said to him, I'm only here because of you, and strangely I got the job. And I was off, age 17, into a daily newspaper in a big city.
What do you remember about that first day, the first time you were sent out with that pad, that pen, off to get a story?
I think excitement, really, and the fact that the news editor, who was a demon, he was so tough and so hard, for 2 years he wouldn't give you a byline, the name on the story that you'd written. I was a staff reporter for 2 years, he was that hard, but full of excitement, and Sheffield, a great metropolitan city, was a great city to work, and I was in my eyes, the best newspaper in the country.
Do you remember your first front page?
I remember the first byline, the first front page. Oh, I do remember the first front page. We had coastal editions over to the East Coast, and it was a sea rescue where a fisherman had been rescued. But the first byline was in our sports paper there, the Greenan, which was lovely. And I remember queuing up for a paper about, shows you the changing times, about 6 o'clock when the vans had arrived, and seeing your name was something else. I felt like a king.
Because looking out over what is the Eastern Daily Press and Evening News newsroom now, it's computerised, efficient. Think back 44 years. What was that newsroom like that? Paint us a picture.
A very good question, and very different, because it was a lot noisier place. Typewriters would be hammering. In fact, they were very noisy machines, and we used to have to do copies called blacks. And the blacks, which were the acetates that you copied your stories on, went into a tray so everybody got a copy and 3 people could read them. But the other thing was smoke pervaded everywhere. Everybody smoked. And so you were in an environment that was quite dense at times. And I remember once, and I had cigarettes up until about 25 years ago, I remember once I was so busy with the story, I had a cigarette in one tray to the right and a cigarette going in the tray to the left, and I was typing away in the middle. So it was an exciting place to start.
The stress on a journalist,
yeah,
I suppose. But going from there, what brought you to this part of the country?
Well, it was a journey that went firstly west and then successively east. I decided that I wanted to work on the national newspapers, so I learned the art of sub-editing, production, went over to the Daily Express and had 5 memorable years there on the Daily Express, and freelancing for a time on the Daily Mail. And then I decided that they were moving to London, so I would go back into the regions. So I'd got my national experience, decided to move back, and ended up in the great city of York, so coming east again. And what a city that was to work. Wonderful place to work, very interesting, new technology racing on us all the time, new stories, and things like York Minster and the Archbishop of York to meet and say hello to. So a lovely place there. And then I decided if I wanted to become an editor, I better go further east. So I went to Ipswich and ended up on the Ipswich Star. And after a couple of years, I was editor there. And in the end, 16 years there and 5 years nearly here.
So when you actually came into this part of the country, the Norfolk-Suffolk market, was that quite a shock? 'Cause it's a unique place. It's a very different place.
I very nearly turned around and didn't stay because I got an interview, and the train ride from York, which is obviously a very beautiful place, through East Anglia was all beautiful, but Ipswich Station, and looking on Ipswich in those days, looked like a very dour, bleak place, almost something that a bomb had hit. So I thought, heck, can I stand this? But I went for the interview, and the people were what persuaded me, the East Anglian people, to come. And I enjoyed Ipswich immensely and rose through the ranks there, and we did some great campaigning there.
Now, in the number of years you've been here in Norfolk at the Eastern Daily Press, what kind of responsibility have you felt personally for a paper which has maintained readers, kept up good figures, when in other parts of the country a lot of the regional press is starting to fade?
It's a huge responsibility because you're dealing with 70, 80 journalists.
Does that ever weighed heavily on you?
Yes, it has, because it's changing times, and obviously with the rapid advances in technology, there are few of us in the future. If you remember that I started with a notebook and a pen, and today I can take pictures and send them in instantly, I can shoot video, I can appear on Mustard TV just like that. Well, in the days of yore, it took hours to get a story into print. And when I was on the Daily Express, you had blocks that you had to cut. If you missized a picture, you used to have a hacksaw to chop it into shape. So back over here, fewer people, technology has raced on, but still great stories. And the EDP's responsibility is vast over a huge area, the biggest patch in the country by far. North Suffolk, East Cambridgeshire, a few copies in Lincolnshire, and of course Norfolk. So I've felt responsibility for a whole network of branch offices from Fakenham down to Beccles. So it's been a big responsibility, but you need a big challenge, so it has been very exciting.
In that time, has there been anything here in North that you've been most proud of, you feel you've put your personal stamp on?
I think raising £300,000 for the flood appeal and binding communities from Kings Lynn all the way through to Lowestoft, I think the EDP was very much Norfolk-centric. But to link up all those communities and to raise so much money, but to get it out to people within days, not weeks, days, we got money out to people who were suffering so badly was a triumph. And also launching the Stars series, the community awards that we've done, Stars of Norfolk and Waveney and Stars of Suffolk in Suffolk, has been a triumph too. So lovely memories.
Because the campaigning side of things, not every paper does it, not every paper does it successfully. Why has that been important to you?
Campaigning is you have to do it. You have to fight for your readers. But if you think about it in another way, everybody's got access to news these days. Some people are reading less. You can get news 24/7 in any direction and often not pay for it. We have a cover price. If you campaign for your readers, you're actually fighting for them, and you're doing something that no one else does. Fighting for your readers is a wonderful thing, and they respect that and they like that. And in doing so, I inherited a great paper with great traditions, but it was a little flat, a little dull. It allows you to have a real impact, and I think that's helped our newspaper sales by having front pages that you're very proud of, that people want to buy.
Now, as we said, a few days left for you. You won't be a stranger to this room, I'm sure, after you do leave. How do you think you're going to feel walking out on that final day?
Well, I think I've prepared quite well for change. So I've already, in fact, left in my head, but I'm editing till the last day, and then I shall just leave and go on. But you might know that the company, our great company Argent, has allowed me to have the honorary title Editor Emeritus, which means I'm connected. I've retired from the front line, but I'm a friend in the background. And I'm doing two columns, one Wild in Anglia, which is a wildlife column with a difference, where I hope my beautiful retriever Saracen will be alongside me, and then I'll have a travel column as well, just to keep in with travel writing, which I've done for 40 years too. So I'll be a busy boy.
Oh, Nigel Pickover, thank you ever so much indeed for your time. 44 years within the industry.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Well, that is all the time we have on News Extra for tonight. Tomorrow night we'll be hearing from another person leaving the stage in Norfolk, Peter Wilson, Chief Exec of the Theatre Royal, 25 years as he steps down there. That's all we've got for tonight. My thanks to Nigel and to you for watching. Have a very good night.